Mr. Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor and former Democratic pollster, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
The Senate is set for a showdown on guns. Who's winning on this issue, President Obama or the Democrats?
Well, I think that's the wrong question. The question is when is the country going to win? I think the problem is that the American majority in this country, the vast majority, want a common sense solution that does something about mental health, that does something about, that addresses the question about video violence, games, and violence in our society as entertainment, but does something about school safety, where my grandchildren had an issue, as well as doing something about reasonable background checks. But that's not what we have. What we have is political posturing at the extremes. And it is, once again, about politics and not about solving problems.
Now, President Obama has finally put forward his 2014 budget proposal. Both Democrats and Republicans are riled up about it. Can President Obama get the GOP back to the bargaining table with this proposal, and how should House Republicans proceed next?
Well, I think that both. I think that the president's proposal is about as sensible, logical as Paul Ryan's, which says we're going to get rid of Obamacare, which the Democrats are never going to go with at this point. I think the question here is, until the Republicans can come up with a pro-growth strategy, number one, and number two, can get a consensus in the country that we must do something about the debt and how it relates to individual Americans, we're never going to get to the heart of this debate. Starting with leading with your chin about we can't wait to get rid of Social Security or cut Social Security and Medicare is not a winning prescription. You have to first win the argument. The problem on the budget is is this notion, and we should have politics, that my metaphor for it is, let's prescribe the pain before we have the diagnosis. You've got to get a consensus in this country, then you can move this thing.
What about immigration reform? How do you see this playing out? We'll see legislation hopefully next week. A number of Republicans oppose a path to citizenship. Does that hurt the party?
Well, I think that if the answer is they don't want to do so, but look, this is not. There are what is coming out of the Senate group. What I read in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and the proposals coming out sounds like a very serious plan. The problem with immigration has been simple. Democrats want a lot of immigration because they want cheap boats, and there are a lot of big businesses in America that want cheap labor, and they've not wanted immigration reform. So if you really want to do something about the borders, and employment security, and being able to have a reasonable system, you can get a reform package that eventually deals with, over a long period of time, the question about what is the status of people in the country. There's going to be a question about paths to citizenship. I think that personally, I have my own views, but I think this is a much more serious effort going on. Apparently, at least the signs are there, that are a lot tougher and longer term than I think anyone imagined.
Now, the fight between the establishment and conservatives, could this hurt Republicans' chances in 2014? I think
destroy the Republican Party is right now. I think that's because essentially what you have is what I've described as the establishment, consultant, lobbyist, establishment complex of the Republican Party is determined to hold on to this thing. They would rather the ship go down as long as they've got their dead hand on the wheel than to allow the grassroots. The 2010 election was a revolt from the bottom up. It wasn't engineered by the Republican establishment. The Republican establishment at the convention tried to rig the rules so they could control things. Last night there was a vote to repeal that, which is what should have been done. It wasn't, and the real question is, they're going to blow the party up if they keep this going on.
What about PACs? Should they be clearing the field for hand-picked candidates?
Well, no, the answer is no. People should be able to run. The problem for the Republicans is new blood, is fresh blood. The Ron Johnsons, the Ted Cruzes, those are new kind of people in politics. But it's not a question of clearing the field. When you're clearing the field, the same people who produced a disaster in an election the Republicans should have taken the Senate with, not only the Aiken-Murdoch race, which is the crossroads Mr. Rove likes to talk about, well, how terrible they were. Well, you lost 10 other races you were supposed to win with establishment Republican candidates who had no message and failed. So that's not much of a solution either. If your job is to find people who will serve their agenda, the establishment's agenda, the Republican Party will lose the Senate again. It's just that simple. So the answer is no.
Looking toward 2016, does Hillary Clinton run?
Who knows? I mean, I think she wants to run, whether she will or can, or she'll be 69. But I think it's right now she's being seen as, oh, it's hers for the winning. Well, it was in 2007 too. People said it was hers for the asking. This is a long process, we will see. But the Republicans better start worrying about what they're going to take to the country. Worry about a candidate who can beat her. They better have something they can get people back to considering Republicans as something other than a dead party.
You touched on a candidate who could potentially beat her. Who could that be?
I don't know. I think, first of all, you've got to have a message and you've got to have a cause. It cannot simply be, we have to find someone. So you need something imaginative. You're the losing party. The out party should be the anti-establishment party. Hillary Clinton's problem is being an agent for change when she is surrounded by all the people around her who are looking, who are basically hustlers and people who want contracts and goodies. So she's in a dilemma. But getting a candidate who simply is going to get up and be a Republican version of that isn't going to work either.
What do you make of the possible candidacies of Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio?
This is way too early. The Republicans better worry about losing 2014 and losing the House. This is a more serious problem. They are paralyzed. They have no message. They have no ideas. And the notion you can simply go out there and win because you're just going to put somebody up. You need to start worrying about how do you attract the country? How do you build a majority? How do you build a consensus for a program?
And what do you think a winning message would be for Republicans right now?
Well, that's not my problem. But one part of it is growth. Obviously, another part is restraining spending. But a more important part is opportunity. They need something positive. Instead of just being constantly the party of no. The failure in 2012, up and down the line, was not only a failure of strategy, it was a failure of tactics, it was a failure of message, and most of all, it was a failure of imagination.
Pat Caddell, thanks for being with us today.
Good.